Georgetta Gankar is here, and today I want to show you how to use different types of brush strokes. And we're going to use two different types of brushes. We're going to use synthetic brushes and natural hair bristle brushes made from hog hair. So first of all, let me explain to you just the two different types of brushes. I did a whole video on brushes for you about the size, how to hold the brush. This is a video on just showing you how to do these lines, okay? So the first thing is you want to know what is the difference between the brushes. These brushes are bristle hair brushes and they're natural hair brushes. And you can see the hair is very rough, but they're very flexible. You can still move the brush, okay? And this one is another natural hair brush. And then we have a synthetic brush. It's very soft to the touch. And the hair is very flexible. Look how it springs back. And then we have a synthetic brush in a different color. And it springs back. Now, what's the difference between the brushes? There are many different types of brushes, but I'm just going to cover these today. So, the natural hair brushes leave a nice texture on your canvas. So you'll see a lot of impressionist painters, of course, they painted back then with natural hair brushes. They didn't have that option of the synthetic hair, but they leave a nice texture. So if you want to see the stroke of the paintbrush, this is the way to go with the natural hair brush. If you want a smoother transition, it's very easy to blend with, then you want to go with the soft synthetic hair brushes, okay? They don't leave that much of a texture. It's a very smooth stroke. Now they do have other brushes like catalyst brushes. I'm not going to go into that right now, but I will show you how to use these brushes. I do want to talk to you about the length of the brush. So the longer the length is, the more options you have. You can hold the brush at the end for a larger stroke, you can hold it in the middle for precision, and then you can hold it at the end for detail. So of course you would need a set that would go from small, medium, and large, and then watch my other video because I spoke to you about that and the numbers and detail. For this situation, we're going to start with this brush, and this happens to be a synthetic brush. Now before I do the stroke, I want to tell you a little bit about something about oils versus acrylics. When we're using oils, and I did a separate oil video for you, if you're using oils, you're going to not use water to dilute the paint. You're going to use turpentine, right, or turpenoid. And that dilutes the paint just like acrylics you have to dilute with water. And you would also use linseed oil that makes the brush go smoother on the canvas. Now, when you're working with oils, you want to work with a thin layer of turpenoid and then your paint, and then you can build up to more linseed oil and oil at the top. So the toppest layer has to be thick and the bottom layer has to be thin. And that's because you want the paint to dry. What happens if the bottom layer is really thick with lots of paint and the top layer is thin, the top layer will dry before the bottom layer, and that's a problem because your paint will crack, and you don't want that. So always go thin, then you're building it up to thick if you're using oils. With acrylics, you're not going to really have that problem because the paint is going to dry. So let's start with our small brush, and I'm using a synthetic brush, and I'm dipping in my water and I'm wiping it off on a rag. And I'm dipping in the water because I want the brush to be a little bit more flexible, right? If I was using oils, I could use my linseed oil if I was doing this as an exercise, or my turpenoid. You'll see if you're using the turpenoid, right, you'll get a more translucent stroke. It will be thinner, okay? And so for this situation, I'm going to be using my acrylics, and I'm dipping. I dip my paint in my water, I wiped it off on a rag so my brush is not wet, and then I'm going to roll my brush just to get an even distribution of paint in the end of the bristles. And I'm going to hold my brush more in the middle, and I'm going to make a line and have it go all the way down. It's a perfect line, okay? And you want to try that, you want to keep doing that. You can dip your brush in the water, always wipe it off on the rag, right? And you're going to do that and move it all the way down. Now I want to show you something. I am going to put I'm going to put water in my brush, and I'm going to put too much water, okay? And what's going to happen is I'm going to pick up my paint, and this is what you shouldn't do, right? And I'm going to go like this, and what happens is when I have too much water in my brush, look what happens. it kind of disappears. The line gets transparent, and sometimes I get these little bubbles, right? So you don't want that. So that's why you really want to wipe off your brush, or not wipe it off, but dab it on a rag, even if you had turpentine and you were using oils. Okay, so practice doing the stroke, rolling the brush, pulling it through, and dragging it down, okay? Then the next thing I want you to do is practice picking up the paint and dragging the stroke down and pressing a little bit harder, but then releasing it, okay? So you'll get it where it's not a continuous stroke, and that's the hardest thing. So remember, pick up the paint, roll it, and you're going to start heavy, and then you're going to lift your brush a little bit away from the canvas so it thins out. You see how it goes straight to thin? Try it again. Pick it up, roll it, roll your paint, go down, push, and then lift it up. When you lift it up and it goes thin, the stroke disappears, okay? So that's different between a straight stroke and then it disappearing. It just shows you how you would have the control with your hand. Then I want you to pick up another brush that looks like a square, and you're just going to pick it up, and you're going to pick up paint on both sides. So I picked up paint on this side, then I flip the brush over, and I'm picking it up on the other side. And I want you to put the brush down. You see I'm doing it flat, and I'm pulling it. And I put water in mine because I want to show you how it looks when I have too much water. You see those bubbles? You don't want that. So you're gonna dip your brush in water, wipe it off on the rag. You have to remember that. We're gonna pick up the paint up here, and I'm gonna do it in a different color so you can see it. I'm gonna drag it down. Okay? See how much thicker that stroke is compared to too much water. This could be, you know, oils where you had too much terp in there, you wouldn't get a jug stroke. But if you want it like this, less water, okay, less whatever solvent you're using, okay? And you can go back over the stroke. You can go up and down. You can practice that. But try practicing a thick stroke going all the way down. Now I want to show you something. This is also a different type of brush. It's a natural hair brush, okay? So you can see the texture. I'm going to do a couple of strokes here. And I want you to look. You can see the texture in the brush. Okay? Where these strokes, let's use a synthetic brush now. Dip it in my water, wipe it off on my rag. And I'm going to pick up a synthetic brush, and I'm going to do it. And let's go back and forth. And look at the difference of how smooth that is. That's really smooth. Right, it's really smooth. Okay? And then I'm going to use the synthetic brush. Synthetic was here. Now I'm going to do bristle hair again. Here. And I'm going to go back and forth like I did next to it. But do you see how rough? You see that texture of how rough that is? See the lines? This is the one that is the real bristle hair. Right here. And this is the synthetic. See how different and smooth that is? So you really can tell which one do you want. Do you want a rough brush or a thinner brush? Once you practice the lines, I want you to practice other things with your brush like we did with the palette knife. But you can practice doing circles, right? Practice simple stuff. Practice doing the stroke and then lifting it. Practice doing the stroke and then lifting it so you're losing it. I want you to also practice not only using the brush across, but using it this way, okay? So I can do these lines down this way too. Get familiar with your brushes, and you can use the side of the brush, okay? You can also layer colors on top, but you have to practice like we did with the palette knife. And these are just the simple steps, right? So I have a little bit of yellow that I have mixed up on my brush, and I'm just practicing and I'm dragging that down on top, and I'm putting it on top of here. Okay, where I have those colors. They look beautiful. They're blending together. You can practice having yellow. And what we're going to do is we have red on our brush, and I have yellow here, and I have red underneath, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a smaller brush, dip it in my water, wipe it off, and I'm going to practice taking that lighter color and bringing it down. And I have to keep wiping it off, right, because I don't want to keep getting the red on my brush. So as I'm bringing the yellow down into the red, I keep wiping off my brush. And I'm just bringing the yellow down into the red, and I'm doing it very slowly. And as you can see, it blends, right? So you're just bringing the yellow. And you always want to bring the lighter color down into the darker color, okay, in your practice, where you get that nice gradation. And keep doing it and keep wiping off your brush, because you don't want to keep, if you have too much red on your brush, after you get down here and then you go back to the yellow, you're going to contaminate the yellow. And you don't want that, right? You want to keep that yellow pure. And you're going to keep doing it. Try it with a lot of different colors. Try it with and here I have yellow and red. Try it with a green and a blue. Try it with a yellow and a purple, where it will blend to brown in the middle. And practice blending. And that will be something that you will need to do. So I'll do it again with one more color here. We'll use a different color. I'll use yellow. And let's do something you can see, like maybe a lime green. And just simple things, lines, right? Control of the line. That's all we're doing here. And blending. The blending, it will take you a while to get it, but you can get it if you practice, okay? So I'm going to do it over here. So I have yellow, right? And I'm going to use a different brush. Still using a synthetic, and do it with synthetic and natural hair. And now I've got my green down here, okay? And remember, what we're going to do is we're going to have to clean our brush really well, and then we're always going to start with the lighter color, and we're going to bring that lighter color down into the green, and we have to keep wiping off that brush and cleaning it. Right, if we don't wipe off the brush and clean it, we're going to bring that unwanted color at the top down into there. And you can keep blending it and moving it down until you start getting this smooth gradation where the yellow is blending with the green. Okay, and keep doing it. Keep wiping off your brush, don't forget. Okay, and you try it. Okay, and keep doing it. I'm going to do it for you fast. And get this little gradation here, okay? So I want you to try these exercises. Then you can try at the, at the end. It'll be fun just to see how smooth your gradations can be if you can just blend all the colors together, okay? And that will help you. And I think that what I tell students is, I said, do it with 3 or 4 different colors. Start out with 2 colors blending together, and then keep adding more colors. And do this exercise until you feel comfortable with your brushes. Try pressing harder, try pressing lighter, and see what the difference is. Because when you press harder, you are going to get a stronger stroke. Okay? Then I will show you the next thing in another video about trees and how we can do trees and bark and things using the brush. But for this, I just want you to practice those simple strokes. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.